Celebrating 49 years on the air, award-winning Farm Week is a production of Mississippi State University Extension.
Today on Farm Week, the Supreme Court to hear a case that could have far-reaching impact. Plus, changes that could have impact on corn growers in Mississippi and beyond. Hold on to your gas tank. Down south in Picayune, Mississippi, the Beatles. No, not those Beatles. And in our feature, speaking of Picayune, an encore from the Crosby Arboretum. Farm Week starts right now.
Hello everyone, I'm Zach Ashmore.
And I'm Mike Russell. Great to have you with us again here on Farm Week. Tariffs have been the main tool of negotiation for the Trump administration, and those extra duties have brought in some revenue to the U.S. But they've also stirred the pot around the globe, and it looks like the U.S. Supreme Court may have something to say about it soon. Peter Tubbs has more.
The legality of the Trump tariff plan will be decided by the U.S. Supreme Court. Two separate challenges to Donald Trump's authority to impose tariffs on trading partners will be argued before the nation's highest court on November 5th. The challenges focus on the language of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, which Congress passed in 1977. The act gives broad powers to the president during a declared emergency. Both sides of the case have asked for a quick ruling from the court.
But there are numerous other avenues that we can take.
During an interview on NBC's Meet the Press on September 7th, U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent estimated that the Treasury would have to refund roughly half of the tariffs that have been taxed since April.
Would you offer rebates, though? Are you prepared to offer rebates?
So we would have to give a refund on about half the tariffs, which would be terrible for the Treasury.
And you're prepared to give those refunds?
Well, I mean, there's no be prepared. If the court says it, we'd have to do it.
The tariffs levied by the White House have gathered an estimated $100 billion in the last 6 months. Goldman Sachs calculates that 85% of the tariffs have been paid by American companies and consumers. The White House expressed confidence in trade talks with China this week. The talks centered on ownership of social media platform TikTok, but also discussed trade broadly. The U.S. threatened to raise tariffs on China again if the European Union raised duties to punish China for buying Russian oil.
As a practical matter, we know that on the trade side, they have the highest tariffs of any major country. They have very high non-tariff barriers.
Many of the trade barriers are to protect Indian agriculture, which employs roughly 700 million people. Poverty among Indian farmers has been a contentious political issue for decades.
However, the Supreme Court rules on November 5th. That ruling will no doubt have a lasting impact on the U.S. economy. A new study says that increased sales of E15 ethanol could help boost the economy. Apparently, so could the limiting of exemptions for refineries trying to get around production requirements. David Miller has that story.
A back and forth over how many gallons of renewable fuels will get blended into the fuel supply may well be swinging towards refiners, leaving row crop producers in the balance. This week, EPA officials released a proposed rule with 3 options that could directly affect the ethanol and corn markets. The change will allow a certain number of RINs, certificates which track renewable fuels from creation to use, to be used for compliance with federal law in the 2026 and 2027 production years. Of the available RINs, the EPA is proposing a 100% transfer, a 50% transfer, or a 0% transfer to those years. The change could affect up to 2 billion gallons of renewable fuels like cellulosic biofuel and biodiesel. The Iowa Renewable Fuels Association believes those RINs should be allocated now and applied to production that took place between 2023 and 2025. The EPA has more RINs to give due to small refinery exemptions, or SREs, granted last month to various companies experiencing economic hardships for production that took place between 2016 and 2024. The EPA's decision granted full or partial SREs to 140 companies that had been either held up or denied under the Trump and Biden administrations.
Refiners must meet volume obligations called RVOs set by the EPA. They can meet their RVOs by blending biofuels into their fuel supply or by buying RINs.
Later in the show, you'll see the wonders of the Crosby Arboretum and how Extension has helped it become a place of pride for the state. Well, one way they use it is an annual celebration of all insect kind called Bugfest. This year's show was the biggest ever and focused on a particular class of insects that are, well, see for yourself.
The annual Bug Fest at the Crosby Arboretum is a well-attended event showcasing the amazing and often overlooked benefits insects play in our lives. Events coordinator Barb Medlock says it's always a fun time.
Bugfest here at the Crosby Arboretum, which is MSU Extension, has been going on now for over 20 years. And each year we just seem to build on it. We have entomologists here, biologists, mammalogists. We have a bat trail, which we started last year. Bats and insects, especially Mississippi bats, they are pest control. So we branched out and we've done different things. This is probably well, I know it is. It's the biggest as far as exhibits that we've ever had, and it's certainly the biggest as far as ambassadors. We have many actual live ambassador insects here and arthropods. We have, oh my gosh, I don't know, 10 different species of spiders. We have beetles that are here. Of course, the very famous Madagascar hissing cockroaches. I think we've got 2 different booths that have those. The Hattiesburg Zoo is here with ambassador wildlife, as well as the New Orleans Insectarium is here. Lots of live critters here. And I think that is just amazing. We also have pinned insects as well, caterpillars. We have live caterpillars. I just think it's really special to be able to see some of these things that you've never seen in your life alive.
The lady in charge of the Arboretum, Pat Drackett of MSU Extension, has been part of the success of Bugfest and many other aspects of this nature preserve. She says the idea behind Bugfest started small.
And it was a small idea that was developed over at the Coastal Research and Extension Center by Dr. Mike Williams and Dr. John Guyton, and they would come here and have night activities, night collecting, and at that time insect collections were pretty popular, so there was a study of what was found at night on the sheets, black lighting and such. The Arboretum has 64 acres, 3 miles of trails, so it's a perfect event to get children and adults out on those trails. And today we do a lot of collecting and observation. People will bring the habitat containers and they'll capture, then release.
This year's feature was on beetles and their importance to the ecosystem. There was even a performance by some very famous beetles to help kids better understand them.
We were highlighting beetles of the earth because beetles are so important and so beneficial to the earth, and they're the largest class of insects from what I understand. Yeah, we had a good crowd and everybody seemed to enjoy it, so it was really fun. We gave a boost for the beetles.
That was a really fun experience, and I look forward to attending again next year. For more information on the many events they hold at the Arboretum, visit crosbyarboretum.msstate.edu.
No question, your private landscape can be a real source of peace and comfort, a real retreat. And there are a lot of ways to make that happen. This week, Eddie Smith showcases one example of how to make a blissful heaven on earth. Here's Eddie.
Today on Southern Gardening, we're exploring a charming backyard garden that beautifully blends structure, texture, and color in the shady landscape. This garden makes smart use of elevation with natural stone steps, guiding you through the layers of lush greenery and blooming color. Here, encore azaleas provide bright pops of color nestled among shade-loving perennials. A variegated yucca adds striking foliage contrast with its sword-like leaves edged in yellow. It's drought-tolerant, deer-resistant, and adds year-round interest to the edge of this planting. Further down the slope, ornamental variegated grass brings movement, visual interest, and fine texture, especially when paired with bold summer bloomers like black-eyed Susans. These cheerful golden flowers brighten up the edge of the path and attract pollinators throughout the warm season. And at the heart of the garden lies a tranquil water feature. The sound of falling water cascading over the stones brings peace and calm to the space. Pickerel weed and other water-loving plants add lushness and help filter the water naturally, making this both a beautiful and functional garden feature. While lush tropical-style plantings of bananas and hydrangeas thrive in the dappled shade. This backyard garden is a perfect example of how thoughtful design can transform a challenging slope into a layered paradise. I'm Eddie Smith, and I look forward to seeing you next time on Southern Gardening.
We'll take a break right here, but don't go away. Coming up in our Farm Week feature, that very special encore about what many in Mississippi call a natural beauty. It's the Crosby Arboretum in Picayune, a living memorial showcasing ecosystems across the landscape. An art form all by itself. Come with us to Picayune. It's a trip you won't soon forget. Another example of just how extension matters. The Crosby Arboretum coming up on Farm Week. Don't go away.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe in my own work and in the opportunity I have to make my life useful to humanity. I believe that education is a lifelong process, and the greatest university is the home. That my success as a teacher is proportional to those qualities of mind and spirit that give me welcome entrance to the homes of the families that I serve. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
I believe in people and their hopes, their aspirations and their faith. I believe that education, of which extension work is an essential part, is basic in stimulating individual initiative, self-determination, and leadership. I believe that these are the keys to democracy, and that people, when given facts they understand, will act not only in their self-interest, but also in the interest of society. I believe in intellectual freedom to search for and present the truth without bias and with courteous tolerance towards the views of others. Because I believe these things, I am an extension professional.
Time for the market report. Prices still going down.
Both in livestock and in row crops. We'll get into it, but first, the numbers. What were the week's biggest gains and losses? And then this month's cattle on feed report and an update on harvest from the USDA. And finally, we talk row crops. How do things look right now? So, markets closed, going down again, both row crops and livestock affected. Let's take a look. The week's biggest gain, sugar, up over 1/4 cent. That's more than a 2% increase from the previous week. The week's biggest loss, lean hogs, down 9.5 cents, nearly a 10% decrease from the previous week. So this month's cattle on feed report recently dropped and showed us more of the same of what we've been talking about a good bit here. The herd is still on the lower side. And the crop progress report looks like harvest season well underway and bushels piling up. Here's Bella Bingham with the details.
In this month's Cattle on Feed report, more trending down in numbers reflecting this year's continued slide. Cattle and calves on feed for the slaughter market totaled about 11 million head, down 1% from September last year. Placements in feedlots during August totaled a bit over 1.75 million head, 10% down from last year. Marketings of fed cattle during August totaled over 1.5 million head, 14% down from last year. Other disappearance, which are losses due to death, movements to other feedlots or pasture, or natural causes, down 6% compared to last year. In the 18 highest corn-producing states, dented stage, when the kernels start to form a dent at their crown due to starch amount and moisture loss, at 91%, the same as last year but 2% below the 4-year average. Mature stage at 56%, 3% lower than last year and the 4-year average. Corn harvested at 11%, 2% lower than last year but equal to the 4-year average. Condition looking pretty good, with 65% reporting good to excellent. In the 18 highest soybean producing states, Mississippi included, dropping leaves at 61%, 1% lower than this time last year but 1% higher than the 4-year average. Soybeans harvested at 9%, 3% lower than last year but the same as the 4-year average. Condition also positive, with 64% reporting good to excellent. In the 15 highest cotton-producing states, Mississippi also included, bolls opening stage at 60%, 2% lower than this time last year, but 1% higher than the 4-year average. Cotton harvested at 12%, also 1% lower than last year, but equal to the 4-year average. Condition not very encouraging, with 37% reporting good to excellent.
In our row report, an update on wheat, corn, and soybeans, our major grain crops. Market analyst Arlen Suderman says in corn and soy, looks like weather issues affecting yields, while with wheat, it's more international issues at play.
The futures market of wheat is different than corn and soybeans because just a small percentage of wheat traded in the world is actually traded on the derivatives market, the futures market. So the cash market really drives things, and that cash market is really set in the Black Sea with Russia. Russia had some quality issues this year, and they've struggled to export what they wanted to export because the areas where they grow their biggest portion of exportable supplies is where they had quality issues. So they're having to pull them from further, which costs more money. So therefore, they're not able to drop prices as far. And so we dropped down to around the $225 per ton level for their market. And it's finding some support there and drifting back up to $230. And if that continues, then that could give us an opportunity for our futures market to stabilize and keep our exports strong in the process. It's been interesting to look at the early harvest results. Quite a bit of variability. Some very disappointing yields because of the rust and because of the drought. Some very impressive yields. And what's typically there with the impressive yields was I put 2 treatments of fungicide on. Fungicide made a huge difference this year, and I understand farmers didn't want to spend money in the first place, and let alone in the second place at these prices, but it made a big difference. From what I'm hearing, difference in yield anywhere from 20, 30 to even 70 bushels per acre, depending on the disease impact, how strong the disease pressure was, and the timing of the treatments. But for the most part, fungicide treatment really paid this year, in a year when we really need to bushel ourselves out of a problem. And so it's not unusual to hear low yields early on, but then as you go into second and third week, you start listening, okay, what's the trend? And I'd say the trend is improving. We still have some bad yields, we have some very impressive yields, but overall, as you would anticipate, the best yields are in the northwestern Midwest, the western Midwest, and the problem yields are the most in the south and the east, where drought was the biggest problem. Again, the northwestern Midwest has some tremendous fields, some tremendous yield potential, it looks like. As we're across more to the south and the east, that's where we're having more variability. I will say both for corn and soybean yields, areas across northern Missouri into central Illinois that had the driest 30 to 45 day period on record to finish off the crop out of 133 years. Surprisingly good yields mixed in with the poor yields that you would expect.
And that's it for a deeper look into the markets. Seems prices keep trending lower while harvest giving little relief. Mike?
Thanks, Zach. And now that great encore made possible by producers Brian Utley and Jonah Holland. Once again to the Crosby Arboretum in Picayune, an absolutely gorgeous place in Pearl River County worth visiting. It's also about the strong support from this woman, Ruth Cook, a volunteer and donor. Take a look.
The Arboretum is natural beauty. It's an art form in its own way. Basically, once you come here and you start experiencing some of the, whether it's the workshops or just the trails and enjoying nature, it just seeps in and sticks with you. I'm Ruth Cook. I am born and bred in Mississippi. Went to Mississippi State University and actually studied forestry. There are many a time that I drive down Interstate 59 on the way to New Orleans. You see the sign and you think, I need to stop there one day. And about 2000, I stopped and I never left. This arboretum is showcasing different natural ecosystems that you would see, and if you really search them out across the landscape of South Mississippi.
The Crosby Arboretum is a living memorial to forward-thinking timber pioneer L.O. Crosby Jr. by his family, and this was one of his favorite sites. This 64-acre parcel, 20 of that is in savanna grasslands, and about 40 acres is in woods. So it's the woodland exhibit, the savanna exhibit, and the aquatic exhibit that we're standing on this bridge for the slough and going into the Piney Woods Pond is about another 4 acres or so.
The Arboretum's mission meshes extremely well with MSU Extension. Extension and what goes on here is real. I think people go, oh, well, I can Google that, or I can go and look at a YouTube video. It's real. They can come down here and they can get the ear of Pat, or they can get the ear of Eddie. You know, it's real. It's not just watching a video.
Volunteers and donors are critical to the Arboretum. I have pictures of Ruth with a set of loppers coming down here and cleaning up after hurricane, and so she'll do everything from the basic pruning and helping out that way, helping with events. From the little to the large is how she helps with our exhibits.
Miss Ruth has been a big supporter of the Crosby Arboretum since I've known her, which is about 10 years now. And she's volunteered her personal time, and she's also volunteered as serving as president of the Crosby Board, Crosby Foundation. And she's been really good at helping find funding for a lot of different programs that are carried on here at the Arboretum.
When you work here and you've worked with other volunteers and you've worked with some of the founders that had this dream and had this idea to create this spot, it creates memories. I mean, I don't just see this gum pond or this beaver pond, or I see the people that were behind some of the ideas, the people that were behind the funding, the people that were on the end of a shovel helping, create projects.
The Arboretum would not be in the place that it is today without having donors like Ruth and without having Ruth. If I see Ruth at the gum pond, I know that she is in the very center of where she feels the heart of the Arboretum is. That is her special place. And the bridge, to be able to see the bridge come to a reality, I know gave her great personal satisfaction, and she is a vital part of it, and her heart is here. I do see a sense of pride in what we have accomplished here.
The exhibits that we've gotten to add to the Arboretum, I think, has gotten us attention, has gotten us more volunteers, more attendees. We are creating and impacting people in the future. It is a legacy, and I think it's an honor to the ones that have come before me. I love this place. I love what it stands for, and I love the mission that it's out there making happen.
And they have every reason to be proud. Great job, Ruth, the heart of a volunteer. Well, next time on Farm Week, something you don't hear too much about, pain management for animals in the American food chain.
Pain meds for those animals are virtually non-existent, and there are a lot of reasons for that, but experts have long sought pain relief for such animals, though getting the FDA to approve it has been complex.
Research into new options is being done, though. What do they look like? Find out next time on Farm Week.
Remember, if you missed a story, look for past episodes of Farm Week on our website at farmweek.tv.
And don't forget to follow us on Facebook and YouTube. See you next week. Thanks for watching.